Hi, and welcome to Running on Carbs Podcast. I am your host, Coach Val. Welcome back to episode number 10 of the Running on Carbs Podcast. I am so excited that you are here, and I am so excited to be hitting double digits today in our podcast episodes. So it is a first milestone for me, and I'm happy that you're here with me. So thank you for being here. Today, we're going to talk about a really fun topic that I'm excited to get into. We're going to talk about fast running, so tempo running. And it's my favorite kind of speed work, and we're going to jump into that very soon. But first, I want to give a quick update about the May contest. So, this is, if you're listening to this podcast live, we're in the last week of May 2024. And this is the last week to enter the May Apple Podcast review drawing. So if you write a review for the podcast and give it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, just take a quick screenshot of it and tag running.on.carbs and post it up on Instagram so I can see it. Then you will be entered to win an 8-week training plan written, customized by me for you. So 8-week plan, you can do so many things with it. If you want to run a 5K, 8 weeks is a great time to train for that. If you want just a base building mileage plan to kind of know what you need to do every day and to build up your mileage in a base plan, 8 weeks is a great amount of time for that as well. So anyway, all you have to do is write a review. Give me 5 stars and let me know that it's there by tagging me on Instagram. So anyway, thank you so much ahead of time if you are going to take advantage of that, and good luck in the drawing. The second thing to announce is that the Bashful Badass Virtual Run Club waitlist is still open. And I'm still really excited about this program, but I know that I really want to build that with the first cohort of ladies who will join that group. We're keeping it small, so just six people to begin with, mostly because I want the feedback and I want to build the program with that group. And in return for that, then that group of people will be locked in at the founding price. So it's a great deal because I like to honor my offers. And so that price will stay the same as long as you want to stay in that program. Anyway, there's more to be had and to know about that. If you want to jump over to the page, I'll put the link in the show notes so you can do that and you can read a little bit more about the program. I don't want to take a lot of time here explaining it again if you're already familiar with it, but you can easily just jump over to the web page and read all about it there. And all you got to do is just a wait list. So you just have to put in your email and your name, and I'll give you the details as soon as it's all put together, pricing, timing, all of that fun stuff. So right now, no commitment whatsoever. Just putting your name on the wait list so that you get the info first. Okay. So with that said, let us jump right into our episode. So our episode is on tempo running. Tempo running is, well, before I jump into tempo running, I want to kind of outline what I'm going to talk about today because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to specific run programs and specific types of workouts. So first of all, we're going to talk about what a tempo run is. We are going to talk about why you should do them and who should do them, maybe who shouldn't do them. And then what is the structure of a tempo run? So we'll break down a couple different ones. So I'll give a couple of examples of tempo runs, and we'll talk about pacing because pacing is very key to a tempo run. And then we'll talk about when you should do a tempo run and maybe when you shouldn't or don't need them. Okay. So what is a tempo run? We're going to jump right in. We're diving in. Okay. So what is a tempo run? A tempo run is different than intervals. This is a common misconception and a common question is, okay, so what is the difference between a tempo run and an interval run? Because tempo runs are run in intervals. So, what's the difference between an interval run and a tempo run? Intervals train a different energy system. And in the intervals, let me get that word out, intervals train fast running. Tempos, tempo runs train more of a intermediate, moderate, fast run. So tempo runs increase your lactate threshold. Might be a term that you're familiar with or that at least you've heard before if you've been in the running space very long. Um, and intervals boost speed and anaerobic capacity. So, anaerobic capacity, which is without oxygen. Whereas tempo runs, they're going to build your aerobic capacity, they build endurance, and they build stamina. Tempo run is really a sustained effort. So it's over a period of time. And depending on your fitness level, depending on what you're training for, that amount of time is going to be different. Whereas intervals are really just an intense burst of speed, and then you rest. So you're going to take off for 200 meters as fast as you can, or whatever the speed is called for, but it's usually very, very fast. And then you're going to stop and you're going to rest. You're typically not going to run anymore. You might do like jog if you're very fit, very common in like cross country training and things like that. But whereas tempo, you're going to sustain a faster pace than your easy runs, for example, and you're going to sustain that over a period of time. And you're really going to try to keep your pace even depending on your workout. And we'll get into some fun workouts later. So the difference between a tempo and threshold runs, that's another common question. And you heard me just a minute ago give both terms. So what is the difference between a tempo run and a threshold run? Oftentimes you hear those two interchanged in a conversation or an explanation of a plan or a program. There's really no difference. So whenever you hear tempo, you can think threshold. And if you hear threshold, you can imagine what we're talking about today, which is a tempo run. They're really the same run, but they're done, they just have different names. There could be some technicalities if you get really deep into the science, but for our purposes and for most people's purposes, they're really the same thing. Okay, so what is the benefit of a tempo run? A tempo run is going to increase overall speed, endurance, and your stamina. Those all sound really good for racing, don't they? So the way that it does it is by increasing your lactate threshold. And the lactate threshold is really the point at which your body can no longer deliver oxygen to the muscles fast enough before it builds up. So you can feel that burn in the muscle. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing as far as like body awareness and the process. But what we want to do over time is build up your capacity. So build up your ability to run longer before that burn starts. Because when that burn starts, typically, what do you have to do? You have to slow down. You have to back off. So you have to bring down your pace and you have to bring down your intensity. Have you ever done a workout where you're doing, let's say, like weighted squats or, oh, I know a good one, jumping lunges. So you're doing jumping lunges and all of a sudden your thighs just begin to burn and you just can't do anymore, or your legs just don't go down as far. So you just don't have the capacity any longer because your body simply can't move the oxygen to your muscle fast enough and it's too much burning. Obviously, you can get that in running also. So you're building up all that lactate and it spills over and you have to slow down to clear the lactate. So in the long term, it's going to help you run faster though. So building up that capacity for your body to work hard is going to build your cardiovascular endurance and it's going to just build your overall fitness. So the faster you can turn over, the better your fitness level overall will be. And that's really because your body is learning to deliver oxygen faster to the muscles that need that oxygen now while you're working. So that's just the basics in a nutshell. You really want to dive into the science and you're geeky like that. That's awesome. Dive in. But for our purposes here and for the purposes of recreational running, um, that's all you really need to know, is that you're building that overall speed, endurance, and stamina when you're using these tempo runs. Okay, so beyond the biological benefits, so those are all the biological benefits. That's what your body's doing on the inside. Awesome, good to know. But what is it actually doing for you that you can sort of take on in um, a more realistic or everyday sort of use? And that would be improves your mental toughness. I think that's key for a tempo run. When you're on a tempo run, you're really focused. You have to focus on your pacing, your breathing, your heart rate, because you're trying to stay in a particular zone. And we'll talk about that too. Um, but you really have to stay tuned into your body. So it really creates that mental toughness because it's not an easy run. It's not an easy workout. You're working when you're doing a tempo run and you're doing it right. You're kind of like in that middle zone of discomfort. It's like, okay, I can keep this up, but it's really not comfortable. And that's the right zone. Now, if you're feeling that way, then you're doing it right. It's challenging, but it's manageable. And it's manageable over that sustained period of time. You really can't let your mind wander around. You got to stay focused on what you're doing in the moment. Um, During a tempo run, you are learning to control your pacing, whatever that pacing may be for you and your fitness level and where you are. The tempo run is where you learn to recognize your body cues because, again, you don't want to spill over, right? You don't want that lactate to overflow and get to be too much, and then your muscles burn and you have to slow down. So you're trying to find that edge without actually going over the edge. So you want to sustain a challenging but attainable running pace. And the key is you want to be able to manage that pace for anywhere from 20 minutes to 60 minutes. That's the pace that you're looking for. It doesn't mean you're actually going to be running it for 60 minutes. It's just that's the pace that you're working in. So what you can run for 20 minutes and what you can run for 60 minutes is sort of the zone of pacing that you're looking at. And then from there, you can actually work backward and create a specific pace for you based on that. That, of course, takes some, calculating and knowledge about where you are and your running. That's where a coach comes in handy also because they can help see where you would have been and then, what that pace is for you and then to help you practice that. The heart rate zone for this run, you're going to be somewhere between 70 and 80% of your max heart rate. So if you have a sports watch that you use, like I use my Coros, then you can look at that to know what your heart rate zone is, and you want to have stay within 70 to 85%. If you're using an RPE scale, I have a great RPE scale that I use. And then also, if you're interested, you can jump back to, gosh, I don't remember the episode number, but I can put it in the show notes. There's only 10 episodes. You can easily find it on your podcast player. But anyway, I did an episode on running naked, which means running without a watch and using RPE scale to gauge your effort level. RPE is rate of perceived exertion. So on your rate of perceived exertion scale, which is a scale of 1 to 10, a tempo run is going to be your moderate level. So that's going to be between 5 and 6 on an RPE scale. At the 85%, if you're really bumping up your pace, so maybe you're doing one of the runs I'll talk about is where you increase your pacing during the tempo portion. So maybe at the top end of your workout and at the fastest pace, you might hit that 85%. That's going to be more like a 7 RPE. but you're probably not going to sustain that for a long period of time because if you're hitting 7 in a tempo run and you're sustaining a 7 over a long period of time, with cardiac drift, you're probably going to end up into an 8, which is going to push you over the edge of where the pacing should really be for a tempo run. A tempo run isn't supposed to be an all out sprint, and it's not supposed to be a hard run. It's a moderate run. And I know we don't talk about a lot of moderate runs because so often when you hear about running and endurance running, you hear a lot more about the easy running, zone 2, or RPE 4, or just easy pace runs. You run slower to run faster. There's truth in all of that, but there is a time and a place for faster running and moderate runs. You just don't do them all the time. The problem is that if you stay in a moderate zone all the time, then you're not getting the benefits of that easy running to allow for adaptation. So, yes, we want a lot of our runs to be in the easy zone, but sometimes we need to have this moderate pace zone to help us, again, increase our lactate threshold and run faster. Because, who doesn't want to run faster? Even those of us who just enjoy our very slow, easy runs, we still want to run a little bit faster. And we certainly want to improve our health and overall cardiovascular capacity. So it does so many things. So, anyway, so that is some other non-biological positives, benefits to tempo running. So let's talk about who should run tempo runs. Who should run tempo runs? Different tempo workouts are good for different distances that you're training for. So you can run tempo runs in your training plans from anything from a 5K training plan all the way to a full marathon training plan. 5K, halves, fulls, all of those. My favorite time to use a tempo run is when you're training for a half marathon. I think that you get the most bang for your buck, if you will, with a tempo run and a half marathon plan. There's benefits to full marathon and then also 5Ks. 5Ks, you might think, oh, I should be doing more, faster, maybe 800 meters or 400 meters, which those are really great for 5Ks also, if you're trying to really increase your speed. But there's a place for tempo runs in a 5K plan also. So what I love about the tempo run is how versatile it is. You can use it in so many different ways, and there's so many different workouts that you can do with a tempo. And a little bit, I'm going to give you 3 of my favorite tempo runs, and you can try them out. So the other thing about tempo runs, about who can do them or who should do them, is that because they are so flexible, you can do them as a beginner, and you can do them as intermediate, you can do them advanced, you can do them at any level, basically. But I know I've said before, you might have heard me say this, that I don't like to build in speed work for new beginner runners. But this is the one workout run that you can structure in a manner that a beginner runner, maybe not a brand new person, or if you're injured and coming back to running, again, no speed work for that runner. I, for instance, am still recovering from a stress fracture. And so I am not doing tempo runs right now because it's speed work. So I'm still working on my base endurance. I'm not ready for speed work. I'm not ready to put the foot turnover into my plans just yet. But if you've been running for, let's say, 6 months, you're still a beginner, but you've had a nice foundation and you probably have a little bit of mileage built up and a little bit of endurance. And so that's kind of a nice time to start incorporating some variety into a workout and into your running program. So tempo runs are really great for that beginner runner that has a little bit of a base to start running a little bit faster. because it's a controlled pace. It's not a sprint, you're not out there just like taking off the starting block. It's a gradual increase. So what is a tempo run? Like how is it structured? Let's talk about that. So the structure of a tempo run, talking about gradual, you start with a warm up. So of course, we always start with a warm up. Maybe your warm up is a 10-minute walk. That's fantastic. So you do your dynamic warm up, then you do your walk. Now you start into your easy jog. So you do a slight increase in pace from whatever you were doing. If you were walking or if you were easy jogging, if you're a little more intermediate advanced runner, then you do a little easy running and you're picking up your pace a little bit. And then you go into your tempo workout. Your tempo workout is usually between 20 and 40 minutes. This is your workout portion of your run. And this is where all the magic happens, is in that 20 to 40 minutes, depending on what you're going to do. So you run your tempo workout and then you slow down and you start doing your cool down. So that might be a little easy jogging again for 5 minutes, and then you walk it off. That's ideal for a tempo workout. So you're warming up, slightly increased in pace, tempo workout, cool down. All right. So how do you estimate your paces in a tempo workout? Uh, Especially when you can use a tempo workout when you're a beginner to an advanced, there's going to be a broad variety of paces in those types of runners. Generally, generally speaking here, it's going to be between your marathon pace and your 10K pace. And if you don't know what those are, there are ways that you can estimate those paces based on other runs that you've done, or you can do a time trial run, maybe a 1 mile time trial run to kind of get your pacing down. So there's different things that coaches can work with you on as far as getting your pacing down. But when you have your pace, then that's going to be your range, is somewhere between your marathon pace and 10K for your tempo runs. You're going to set a pace range though. So you're not trying to hit, I'm going out and I'm trying to hit 8:30 a mile. No, it's gonna be more like 8:30 to 9 or 8:30 to 8:45. So, you're gonna have a range that you're gonna stay in for your run, because remember, this is a sustained run time. So, you're not just trying to hit a single pace and stay there solid. You wanna stay within that range. Um, you're not running so hard that you're absolutely exhausted at the end. If you do a tempo run and at the end of the tempo run you're like, "Oh my god, I can't run another, minute. I'm exhausted. I'm wiped out. I'm breathing hard." Maybe you had to take walk breaks and it wasn't even part of the workout, but you're just so exhausted. You're running too hard. That's too hard. You need to back off and change your pacing strategy. Maybe it's hot. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why maybe that pace is okay sometimes and not today. But if that's the case for your run that day, you're running that workout too hard. So you should be working comfortably hard in a range that you or in a pace that you can sustain. Okay? That's your goal with the tempo. And also I've heard about people saying, "Well, I got to go to the lab and figure out my threshold, my lactate threshold, and I got to have a lab work or lab test to understand and to know when do I clear out the lactate at what point and pace." You don't need all that. Just you don't need that at all. I mean, sure, if you like to have fun with that, have fun, but you don't need it. All you need to know is that RPE scale and your pacing as far as like your marathon to 10K, which of course, like I said, you can figure out. That's all you really need to know. You don't need to have all this fancy stuff. You've heard of people saying running is cheap. All you need is a pair of running shoes and you walk out the door and you run. There's a little bit of truth to that. Not I mean, if you look in my closet, there's not a lot of truth to that because I got a lot of shoes. Um, don't tell my husband, but I think he might know. Um, but yeah, it's not quite that simplified, but You don't need a lab test either. You just need to practice. So, this isn't rocket science and this isn't a test. This is practice. You're going out there and running these runs to work on your cardiovascular system and to improve and get better. So have fun with these runs, especially the tempo run, because a tempo run is a lot of fun, especially when you do it properly because again, you're not exhausted at the end of it. Instead, you really just feel invigorated. When you do a tempo run right, when you're done and you've done your cool down, I mean, sure, that middle part of the tempo was hard, but that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be challenging but sustainable. So when you get to that middle part and you're like, oh, I can barely hang on, I can only hang on a little bit longer. You hang on and then you're like, oh, I'm done. And now you're to the cool down. It is an invigorating feeling. And, I argue to say that you might even get a runner's high with a tempo run. I think the only couple times I've had a runner's high was when I was doing tempo. So it is a fantastic, um, it is a fantastic workout. So there's three of my favorite. I want to share with you three of my favorite tempo runs. And these can be adjusted. So I'm going to name them off, but you can adjust these for either a timed tempo, which means like using 5 minutes, 10 minutes, etc., for your tempo intervals, or you can do it by mileage. You could do, half a mile, quarter mile, 1 mile. So either way, you can structure these by whichever manner you prefer. Alternating time, distance, pace of the tempo portion of the workout make these good for all levels of runners. So if I read off a workout and it says running 5 minutes, but currently you can't run for full 5 minutes, you can do a 1 minute. So you do a 1 minute tempo, and then you can do, 30-second walk or, build it up in 1 minute increments. So start small and build. Again, when you're doing tempos though, and you're going to build in speed to a work or to a training plan or a program, make sure that you have that base foundation fitness level though. I'd really discourage brand new runners from adding in speed because, going back to the biomechanics of the biomechanics, the tendons, the muscles, the energy system, everything has to be there in the foundation level before you go adding on speed, because that's how people get injured or have or sustain stress fractures and things like that. So, I want to help you avoid that. So make sure that you have that foundation first. Okay, so the first tempo workout that I love is just the classic tempo. This is the classic one. You do your warm up, easy running, and then you're going to do your workout itself, which is going to be 20 to 40 minutes, depending on your fitness level of your tempo pace. And you hold that for your 20 to 40 minutes, and then you go back to easy running for a period of time, and then you just cool down. Super simple, easy to program, easy to actually do and implement. It's the classic tempo. So that's number one. The second one is my personal absolute favorite. So if I have to build in a tempo run into my own program, this is the one that I do. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. So this is the one that I do. An example here is a 25-minute tempo. So 25-minute tempo run in the one that I'm going to give you. So you warm up, do easy running for a few minutes, and then I'm going to start the tempo. And my tempo is going to be 5 minutes at RPE 5. And then I'm not going to take breaks in between. I'm simply increasing here. So this is called a pyramid run, by the way. So 5 minutes at RPE 5, 5 minutes at RPE 6, 5 minutes at RPE 7. That's my max. So that's the top of my pyramid. And then I'm going to come back down and I'm going to do 5 minutes at RPE 6 again. And then I'm going to do 5 more minutes at RPE 5. And after that, I'm going to go back to my easy running and cool down. That is my favorite pacing practice, a tempo workout, because you are building slowly. So it allows the body to settle into the new pace. And 5 minutes at that pace is a good amount of time. And again, if you are doing this workout and you're not there and you can't sustain that pace over a 25-minute workout, then cut this down. Maybe do 2 minutes, 2 minutes at 5, 6, 7, and then back down. So shorten it up, but you'll still get the good practice, and it helps you learn to control your breathing, learn to control your pacing. Especially in the beginning of this, it's easy to go a little faster as you're starting up the pyramid, and then you get to the top, and if you've done it right, you've got the energy to sustain at the top. If you haven't done it right, or if you've gone too fast, you're going to be hurting when you get to number 7. So at that RP7, and then coming back down, it's like relief. So when you come back down from your 7 to your 6, you're like, whew, it kind of feels like a reprieve. But what's beautiful about this workout is that when you were going up the pyramid and you were doing 5 to and you jumped to 6 and you're doing, RPE 6, you're feeling it because you just went up. But when you come back down from 7, all of a sudden 6 feels a little better. 6 feels better coming down than it did going up. So it's a unique workout. You'll really, really notice the difference in how you feel when you're actually implementing that program and that structure. So the last one is a mile tempo. And this one's very straightforward also. Warming up, do your easy running. Now you're going to pick up the pace and you're going to do 4 times 1 mile at your tempo pace. So whichever tempo pace you've chosen for this workout, depending on whether you're training for, a 5K. This one's probably better for more like a half marathon training plan rather than a 5K. But let's say you're training for a marathon. This is a really great workout for that. So in this case, I'm saying four times 1 mile with a 2-minute recovery jog in between each of those miles. You can do more intervals as you're more fit. So you can increase these miles to maybe up to 6 miles. So you could do 6 times 1 mile. There's a lot of variety and a lot of options in these workouts. But the point is that you're building up, you're sustaining over a period of time, and then you're going to come back down with your easy running and your cool down. So those were the 3 favorite tempo runs. Hopefully you'll be able to put a couple together and try them out. Let me know in social media what you think of those. I would love to know. But let's talk a little bit about how to program these tempo runs into your race strategy. So tempo runs, they're considered a workout. So this is a quality workout, which means that you don't want to do them back to back. So you don't want to do a tempo run on a Tuesday and then another tempo run on a Wednesday. You're going to need to leave some time in between these workouts before you do them again. And quite honestly, I wouldn't do more than 1 or 2 hard workouts along with your long run every week, because you need the recovery time in order for your body to adapt to this harder running, and for your energy systems and your biological systems and your muscles, tendons, etc., bones. It all needs to come back to that homeostasis and recovery, because that's when you adapt. That's when your body fixes itself. And when it fixes itself, it comes back stronger. So you need to give it time to do that. So don't think more is better. When it comes to running, more is not better, not in this sense. So it's a workout. You're going to sandwich your tempo days in between easy running days or even a rest day. Tempo runs are used in moderation in a well-structured plan, because you want to avoid overtraining. Not only overtraining the body systems, but your internal systems too. cortisol, stress, hormones, all of those things. You have to be careful about overtaxing the body and overtraining. So we're going to sandwich them in between your easier days. Um, if you're brand new to running, again, less than 6 months, or if you're inconsistent, or if you're coming back from an injury, like I was talking about for me earlier, then you're not there yet to incorporate tempo runs, and that's okay. You will get there, and I know I will get there. I'm looking forward to doing these again. As you can tell from my voice, I'm really excited about tempo runs, and I love them, and I miss them greatly. So I am very excited to start doing them again. And so don't get overly excited, though. Be patient, build up the foundation, because you don't want to get injured and then not be able to do them at all. So um, take take your time, build into it. Um, Adding speed too injury or too soon can really, could lead to injury. So we don't want to do that. And you really want to have that solid biomechanical and cardiovascular base so that you can enjoy the tempo run. All right. So in summary, good for all levels. I think we've covered that. Good for all levels when structured to meet the athlete where you're at in your fitness level. Fantastic workout though. And aside from strides, as a coach, when I'm building programs for athletes and for runners, aside from strides, this is really the first speed workout that I plan into a training plan for someone who's prepared and ready for it. So tempo runs are ideal again for any level because of the flexibility of how you can structure it and complete and make a workout. It's a real personal challenge. So when you do a tempo run in your program, like I was saying, I mean, it's the greatest way to get the runners high, I think, when you do them properly and you don't overexhaust yourself. So it's a fun workout. There is a purpose to the workout. So you always want to make sure that if you're doing a tempo run, that there is a purpose for the workout. I never create any plans that don't have purposes to each and every run within the program. So every run in a training plan has a purpose and an outcome for being there, a reason for being in the plan and where it is in the plan. And tempo runs are no different. There's a purpose and a reason to them, and they're not just like thrown in there willy-nilly. So they're even like programmed into a training plan in a certain phase of the plan. So it's not the first run you're going to do in a training plan when I put it together. It's going to be in a specific training block where it belongs so that you get the most out of it for adaptation and for your overall plan for what you're trying to do and accomplish as far as like what the plan is for. Okay, so that is what we have today. So now you know that tempo runs are a great option for you, and they will help you run harder, they will help you run faster, and they will help you run longer over a sustained period of time, which is what we endurance runners really, really want to do. So hopefully this has helped you and that you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, please write me a 5-star review, put it on Apple Podcasts, share it out on Instagram so you can be entered to win that 8-week plan if you're entering in the month of May. So, all right, well, have a fantastic week. It was great to see you on episode 10, Double Digits. I will see you next time in episode 11. And in the meantime, run your best life on carbs. I'm Coach Val. See you next time.